Okay, welcome to Business Analyst Series 2023, Week 4, Session 8. You guys have made it a long ways. So like we've said in the past, this is a 90-minute session. If you have any questions, please put them in chat. In the meantime, can you guys please keep yourself on mute so we get a clean recording? And you're encouraged to put your LinkedIn information in the chat so people can get to know you. If you have any questions outside these sessions, just please put them in the forum. And I will put the URL for the recording that you can receive tomorrow in the chat for you. And then we just want you to have some fun during the session. As you know, I'm Diana Gray, the Community Marketing Manager for the Americas. We have Christina Vidu, who's a Global Manager for the marketing community. We have Manjula, who is the founder for the Next Innings, Mukesh, who's the RPA Manager for Boundaryless, and Ashwathi, who is the Academic Alliance Manager for UiPath. So we're at session 8. We just have 2 more sessions after this. Next week's going to change up a little bit. We're going to be talking a little bit more about careers next week. And I'll go through a little bit of that today. So today's speakers are Andre, who's a Senior Project Manager for UiPath, Tracy, who's the Operational Excellence UiPath Partner Lead for Centric Consulting, and she's also an MVP. Manjo, you guys met last week or earlier this week. He's the Vice President for RPA and Analytics with NatWest Group and an MVP. And we have Mukesh Kala, again, who's from Boundaryless, is an RPA manager and works with, is a UiPath MVP. So today is session 8, and I'm just going to give you guys some information here because we're doing a little bit of a switch next week. So if you notice, the final project form is due on December 9th. I just want to make sure we're going to put that in chat so everybody gets it. What happens next week is, so we want you guys, you're all required to do a final project and fill out a PPD if you would, or the best you can to fill that out with the information that we gave you. So on that final form, you'll see some questions that we have. We ask you if you would like to present for demo day, or if you would like to do the mentor session. We would recommend that you all do demo day. Basically what demo day is, that's going to be on the 10th session, is we're going to move to another room. We're going to break out people out into breakout rooms with some of the speakers you guys have had during the last 4 weeks. And they're going to look at your projects and kind of judge you. And this is a great opportunity for you guys to see how you did, walk through your presentations. You would get 5 minutes to go through your slides, let them provide some feedback for you. So I would recommend that you all sign up for that. If you don't want to, what we're going to do on that same day is we're going to give a little bit of an overview in the morning, and then you can leave and do self-study for the rest of the week. But basically, again, I would very much recommend that you join the demo day. It's a lot of fun. If people do not want to do a demo, but want to see the demos, we can't do that because we're having the demos done in the breakout room. So there's really nothing to see because they'll be doing individual demos in the demo rooms. So we can't even record that the way it's set up. So if anybody has any questions about that today, just let us know. So Mukesh put the final project form in the chat. If you have any questions, remember those are due Saturday. And then the rest of this week, we need you to finish the rest of your required courses. So I'm going to move on. This is what the demo day form will look like. And you need to, again, fill this out. The sooner you fill it out, the better. But you have till the 9th. And then demo day will be a cascade of different people. Some you've met, some you'll meet on Monday, but a lot of the people who have done these sessions will participate in that. So again, we encourage you to do that. Okay, and with that, I'm going to stop there and let Andre present.
Okay, let me start sharing my screen. Let me know if you see.
I can see your screen.
Okay, so I wanted to, first of all, introduce myself because I didn't get to last session. So I'm a senior product manager for Automation Hub. What that means is that if you things that are going well in the product Automation Hub, I'm I don't know responsible, and things that don't go well in the product, I'm the same. I'm responsible. So um, that's kind of like the role that I have in UiPath. And at the same time, a lesser known fact is that I started out as a business analyst in my career. So I really do empathize with you. So you are kind of my crowd. So starting with this, I wanted to start out with some recap on things that were touched in the last session about Automation Hub, and more specifically, um, the the recap on automation idea and its phases. I think it's an important thing to put context on when what I'm gonna touch on today. Um, and then we're gonna actually do directly inside Automation Hub. We're gonna start submitting a COE idea and go through all the questions that are in the form and give some nuance to why they're being asked, how they're useful in capturing information, and at the same time why they're there and why do they make sense, and some other information that I think it's meaningful about what can be done in Automation Hub in that part. And then we're going to go into cost benefit analysis, which is something that can be done for any idea. And this is like an additional exercise that you can do for an idea, and some, nuances. When should you do it? There's sometimes that maybe it's not a good opportunity. And then we're gonna end up with Q&A. So this is what I have set up for now. So let's jump into it. So I wanted to go through the main, phases of an automation idea. You've probably seen something around this, is that you have, the main idea types that you have in Automation Hub is what we call an employee-led idea and what we call an COE-driven idea. The main difference between them is that, the COE-driven idea just skips one phase, and that's this phase, the idea phase, because it goes directly into an in-depth questionnaire where you get, more details that are normally relevant to prioritize ideas. The high-level assessment, which is being used for an employee-led, is kind of like a in between, um, like like questions that are just simple for any employee to fill in, but they're not necessarily very meaningful in, having in-depth information about um, prioritizing ideas between them. Is more around like knockout criteria, things like that. So normally you'd have these things. So and the next phase, the assessment phase, is where they join in. All of them get into the assessment phase, the one that makes sense from the employee-led, but the COE-led kind of like go directly in assessment. So here is basically where we get all ideas to the same amount of, data in terms of what are the benefits of these ideas, what type of processes this is touching, what type of employees are going to be benefiting from automating the activity, and so on. So this is the first time when you can actually, you're getting enough data to be able to compare two ideas on the same, numbers. Um, and if you are able to gather this data, then we get to the qualification phase. So qualification phase is basically the place where you start choosing which are the best ideas to invest in. And you'd you'd ask maybe if it's that important for a business analyst because they come a little bit, you come in and say, okay, we investigate. But most of the time, I think the most important exercise that is being sometimes is being left off for as an afterthought is choosing the best automation or the best idea to invest in, and not doing it with something that is has some form of data that you can compare and get all ideas to the same numbers or the same things that you're looking at to compare. It's quite hard to choose the best idea. Some of them might be hard to quantify, and that's why this is what is Automation Hub is trying to do in the end, is make sure that you're investing in the most valuable ideas and not just any idea that comes to mind. So this is the recap. I'm gonna now move to submitting a COE-driven idea. So let me change my share, and we're gonna move into Automation Hub. Okay, so let me know if you see my screen and
Yes, we can see the screen.
cool. Good. So this is quite something that you'd be very familiar if you just started out with a fresh Automation Hub instance. This is what you're gonna find. You're gonna find 8 ideas that are default. So these are very good in terms of exploring how an idea looks filled in. Like the onboarding of a new employee is a good example of that. And then you have other types of ideas. But what I want to do now, I'm going to start submitting an idea, and I want to go through each thing here. So the first thing that you're being asked is to select, okay, what's the business area? This is what we call a category. So categories are very helpful in making sure that you have the idea is split in terms of business area, or even certain processes or business units. These categories are editable, so they're customizable, so they could be completely different in your own organization if you have already a setup or an automation hub. So that could be also the case. And at the same time, it also decides for users what they can see. Not all users could submit all the ideas here. And they might even have different questions added, so a little bit of customization just because they're in a certain business area or category. So now I'm gonna move to COE driven idea. So I'm gonna start filling things out, and I'm gonna talk about things. Um, we're gonna use a very simple use case: is set up out of office in Slack, Outlook, and Workday, for example. Um, and I'm not gonna, be very in depth in filling in things in, but I'm gonna talk about what type of information you fill in here. So usually, like descriptions, clearly you just have a description of the main steps that you want to cover here, and this would be done by somebody from the COE. So this is where, as I was saying, you're going directly into detailed assessment. We're not doing a high level assessment right now because we're in the COE. So I'm going to mention here that we're going to have setup in Outlook out of office. Then we want to, this is going to be set up a status in Slack. And we're going to also make an absence request in Workday. Workday is, if you're not familiar, Workday is kind of like an HR tool where you can request days off, and you can see HR related data about your own profile. Pain points is like, hey, yeah, that's doing setting up each one is not easy to remember, and you forget people don't know. Know that you are not available. Negative impact. I wouldn't know what to say here. So not all the time you know exactly, but it's kind of like the same thing that, just time would be, and the people that don't know that you're not available, so they just, not setting the correct expectations when you're out of office. And then we're going to get into the detailed assessment. This is the part that we're going to focus. So here is like the primary reason to automate a process. As you can see, is cost, quality, productivity. So in this case, this is an interesting use case because it's not about cost here. It's more about productivity than other types of automations. And the thing is that most cases in Automation Hub, they have a very good fit in terms of cost, because if you automate lots of hours in terms of hours saved, then it's really easy to quantify in terms of cost savings. But this one is kind of like in between. There's some cost savings, but mostly it's about productivity and keeping people informed. Um, do expect this is like an important section in environment stability. Process changes expected in the next 6 months. The question here is if something is going to be changed in the next 6 months, maybe it's not worth automating. So in this case, I don't have or don't expect anything. Application changes expected in the next 6 months. Same. If there's major changes expected, this is not going to be a good fit for automation. So these types of questions help you, at least, even if you don't know the information, it helps you at least question yourself. Is this the case for this automation? Is this the case for this idea? Um, and you might have people that know these answers, but in case you don't know, you can reach out to people who would know these answers, and this would help you out to know if this is a good place to invest in. Then um, average, this is the employee profile. So this is an optional thing. In terms of optional would be the part about the full cost, but this will help you out to identify what would be the savings for. So we're gonna say 216. We're gonna say 8 hours working per day, and we're just gonna put an amount here, and just to have something roughly there. Then we move to process volumetry, or process metrics, as this is something that is very core to quantifying the value or the benefits that you're gonna get out of this idea. So, for example, how was the task, was the frequency of this? In this case, it's going to be yearly. Let's say we do, I don't know, on average, let's say we do 10, 10 per employee per year. I think that's a good rough number. Number of employees performing the task. I'm going to just use some broad numbers. Okay, and we're gonna think about what does it take. So submitting a couple of things, it's around, let's say, 25 minutes. Um, it could be more or less. What would be the average error rate? These are optional things, but in case you have such a process that has a form of error rate, this is not necessarily easy to calculate all the time, but in case this is like something that has some form of tracking already, this would help you out to understand what's the full benefit when an error. In some cases, an error, like for example, a 5% error rate can change things a bit. In other processes, a 10% and the rework time might be that, if you do it wrong, you have to correct lots of things and not just the time that it took, the 25 minutes to do it again. You might have to go back and correct things and then redo the whole work. So in this case, it's probably the rework. It's not a lot. It's just a couple of minutes. But in other cases, it could be more than the average processing time for a transaction. Then audit, same. This is not a process that is audited, so this is going to be always we're going to give it a 0. But in cases is like it's a financial process, so it has some form of financial impact, or is an auditable process, this could have a big impact. So if you have what would be a normal use case for auditing is 5 or 10%, of cases to be looked at, or 10%. And audit is normally, it's more lengthy because you're double checking everything. So it could be even a double. I'm not gonna leave it for nothing right now. But basically, this is starting to get, some totals in terms of total review audit time. This is not the case. Total time needed to perform work as is. So this is basically the numbers adding up, the processing time plus rework time. And then based on the employee profile and the amount, it's kind of like the amount the FT is required for this. So 3.7 FT is required, full-time employees. And the cost is, you'd expect that is not a lot, but it is something. Then we have some questions around process ways of working. Yeah, if there's process peaks, if what are the average number of steps. So this is clearly, this is rare but predictable event, I would say. It's less than 20 steps. It's not a lot of things to be done. And process is completed. Yeah, there's some variation depending on the type of vacation that you take and things like that. So it could be a small, variation. So all of this is kind of these questions. Each one has its own, reason. These are helping compute some KPIs that I'm going to talk about a little bit later. And I'm going to touch again based on those. Digital data input in this case is 100%. There is no scan data input, and this is going to be structured digital input over 80%. Same, these are things that are helping, calculate the automation potential. Yeah, so I'm going to add some applications here. We're going to say Slack. We're going to add Outlook, and we're going to add Workday. Okay, so that's web. It's not gonna be a version. And we're not gonna add other details. So we can see already some inputted data. Automation potential is 98%. Ease of implementation is 100%. Both of these are calculated based on the questions that we've just answered on the data input, process ways of working, and environment stability. So for example, automation potential is very, very sensitive to environment stability. Ease of implementation also is kind of like looking at these. And the thing is that in this case, this looks quite good. I mean, 98%, it means that you're probably gonna get most of the, most of the manual time. You're gonna save it by automating it. There's still going to be some leftover manual input, but it's going to be reused across the applications. And then we're looking at what's the benefit in terms of per company, for our saved currency and FTs. So these are the main things. And it's going to save a total of 4 hours per year for each employee, which is not great, not awesome, but it's something. So this is an example of something that could sound like a good idea, but if you look at the numbers, it's not really that impactful. So this is just an example of how to look at these and how to understand why this is important to fill in. And some other things that I want to mention is that these, as you can see, it's not necessarily easy to capture, the benefit of letting other people know that you're out of office. It's quite hard to quantify. So it's one of those things that it's not just about, metrics. Sometimes it's also intuition and, some soft benefits. So there's always going to be this part where you have soft benefits. It's going to be a bit more nuanced in terms of how you calculate it. And then the
Sorry, we
final.
have a couple of questions in the chat. The first
Sure.
question from Meredith is where you got the structured digital data input, where that came from.
This one?
Correct.
So because the way that I've answered this one is because everything is being done through web applications that have APIs, by design, they are structured data, digital data input. And they all have APIs. So this would be something that you normally you can also look at how examples, but most automations are valuable. It could be like you have an Excel sheet, so things like that. So if it's structured, if it can be extractable, easily extractable. So these are kind of examples of, an answer that would say over 80%. If you have a combination of, invoices, scanned invoices, or legal contracts that you have to extract data, then you're going probably, it's not going to be an 80%, you're going to be lower. So that's kind of like the way to think about this one.
And then the last question is from BP, and they mentioned that there's no indication of the number of employees. How can the tool get numbers on benefits per company versus per employee without putting that information in?
I meant this is basically the number of employees performing the task. Okay.
All right, that should be it for this.
Okay. So I'm gonna just finish up by setting myself as a process owner on this one because I don't have anybody else on this tenant. Normally this could be somebody else that would be besides the submitter if that's the case. If not, usually the business analyst could be a good process owner for these types of things. So I'm just gonna submit it right now. This was as we were talking. This would be an idea that right now is in assessment phase. So assessment, waiting, review, and the next phase for this would be, hey, we have enough data. Let's move it to qualification in case this is in terms of it has enough benefits to even be considered for that. I'm not gonna go through the whole flow of what it takes because this is the most important part in terms of doing prioritization. So capturing the data, comparing ideas between them, and then deciding which one you're gonna move on, and then you get to the actual business analysis of that, like capturing with using task capture, using task mining, to build out the details of what it takes to actually automate that. So that's where the part that you've been having sessions on other things is I want to look at. Then we can what I wanted to do now, let me switch back to the presentation. Finish up a little bit with this. Want to put the key takeaways for this. So yeah, all ideas, as I was saying, have assessments. So some COE ideas start directly with the detailed assessment versus an employee-led one that starts with the high-level assessment. And then when it gets to assessment, awaiting review, you start getting the to do the details. You add the details. Then, as I was mentioning earlier, categories are used to group ideas by business unit or process area. This could be very important if you have, champions per category that ideas will be split between them. So certain people approve ideas for a certain category and so on. So this could be something to take into account. You'd have different stakeholders to talk to depending on the category. And then prioritization between ideas is really important. Benefits in hours or FTEs is in a combination with ease of implementation are the quickest way, to prioritize. But it's not, not all the time. It's not the only way to prioritize. As an automation potential is calculated by taking into account how complex the process is, and it's based from answers from the detailed assessment. Similar, ease of implementation is the same. And in the end, it tries to predict how hard the development process will be. And yeah, benefits are calculated by taking the process metrics, the volumes, and applying the automation potential. So if you look at the process metrics, the hours saved per year, and you see a very different value in the benefits, it's normally the percentage of the automation potential is impacting that one. So I've seen this in multiple instances where there's confusion around it, and I just wanted to mention it right now. And some other noteworthy mention is that assessments can be customized. So if whatever questions we provide out of the box in Automation Hub don't make sense for the type of automations that you're doing, or the way that you get approvals, or the type of information you normally capture for this, everything that you've seen there can be customized in terms of adding new questions or even changing the existing KPIs. So keep that in mind. We're not going to go into how that is done, but if something doesn't feel right in Automation Hub, the fact that you can customize it, I think, is an important part. And another thing is, if our formulas fail to reflect the benefit of an automation, like the benefit in hours, as I was saying, like some soft benefits, it's business analysis is some form of, there's the data and there's the, exact nature of what you're trying to do, but there's also your intuition of, how it would help, how it would impact the company, or how it would, what would be the soft benefits of that. And if your objectives as a company are more around soft benefits, then you'll have to, prove to make a case for these types of ideas when there's no, hard benefits that you can count. And yeah, when prioritizing, as I was saying, because it's an important subject, choosing the right ones first before, deep diving into one, is high benefits and ease of implementation as easy. Those are the, the quickest wins that you can do, and those will help you, get support for other more lengthy processes or more complex implementations. So now that I've done the, the conclusions of like what it takes to submit a COE-driven idea from the context of, the initial part, I want to move to cost-benefit analysis. So switching back to
We do have one more question in the
Sure.
chat. Is there a recommended way to capture and import ideas into Automation Hub, like from an MS form or Excel, something like that?
So there's two main ways to capture ideas. I mean, actually, there's more than two ways, but um, I'll go for each one of them. So you have depends on how you want to go inside the organization. So you have the crowdsourcing version. Yeah. So crowdsourcing means that you'd be going into the organization and sharing to everybody Automation Hub so they can come in and submit ideas. They would get a very simplified version. They would not have access to everything. They would only see the submit. They could submit the submit part, the explore of automation, the existing ones, and they would be able to submit only employee-led ones. So they'll go through the simplified questions and only the high-level assessment part. So that's one way to do that. Another way is like it's COE driven. So you go as a COE, you go to each business unit and you talk with the stakeholders there and ask them, okay, what are your pain points? What are your biggest opportunities in terms of, things that could be automatable, and then you capture on their behalf, and you go and capture directly the detailed assessment. That's another way. And the last one is that if you already have a pipeline captured somewhere, like in MS Forms, in Excel sheets and stuff like that, we do have what we call the import pipeline. It's something that you build a CSV and you import it, and that's gonna create an initial pipeline that you can go and then add details on and start prioritizing and implementing. So those are the main ways. And if there are no other questions, I'm gonna move to cost benefit analysis. So back to Automation Hub. So right now, what I want to do is look at an existing use case. So the onboarding of a new employee, this one is already, it has all the details in terms of like detailed assessment, and the cost benefit analysis is a separate tab, and it serves a couple of purposes. And this is like a pre-filled one, and I'm just going to explain the details in here, is that its whole purpose is to make sure that whatever is the cost of implementing this in terms of resources, infrastructure, and everything is gonna if you add everything up, the benefits and the cost, you're gonna have a positive ROI. This is the whole scope of it, and basically make sure that it's a worthwhile investment. And this is an optional exercise. This doesn't have to be done. There's use cases always that don't have enough value to even consider doing a cost benefit analysis. But ones that you believe that they're risky, like for example, you have, I don't know, a very high, cost, or you feel that there's going to be a lot of effort to do, it might be worthwhile doing this exercise before actually start doing the implementation in terms of analysis and everything. And it's just like a rough idea. So I'm going to go into edit mode to show you what you have here. There are certain things that have to be set beforehand, which I've already done, and it's what we call the cost catalog. So there's certain costs that you have to set up in order to be able to use the cost benefit analysis. So there's a part about the project plan, and this is like the very simple project planning. And we start with the ease of implementation. This was what was estimated by the algorithm. So what, based on the questions, the answers that we filled in the detailed assessment, but after the thought, when we started implementing, you can come back and say, what was the final one? It was medium. It was not an easy implementation. It was a medium, let's say. So this would be, some lessons learned type of capturing. Then the baseline in terms of how much time it would take to do analysis, solution design, development, testing, and when the launch date would be. And then, you can do like actual versus new estimates and like show the deltas and things like that. So this is like more around project planning. What I want to look more around is the estimations in terms of cost. Yeah, so we have the RPA software vendor used. It could be, you can define multiple ones. In my use case, I only have UiPath. And then we have some automation assumptions. Yeah, so automation type is going to be attended, is going to be unattended. Yeah. How much time will the robot be working? I'm gonna say this is gonna always influence the amount of the licenses is gonna use. Then we're taking the details in terms of volumes from the detailed assessment here. So volumes per year and volumes per month. And then remember that we have filled in how much it takes per transaction. So this was like, this is from this specific idea, not the one that we filled in. We're gonna have, the speed multiplier. In this use case, we're gonna put a 3. And this is gonna give us how much time the robot will be running. And the last part is we're looking some at this as like, what would be the difference for the human before the automation and after the automation? So before the automation, yeah, he was doing 100% of that volume and effort. And after the automation, he will be only doing 22%, based on the numbers that we filled in. And similar, what would be the robot? The robot would be doing 78% of the work. So this is going to be like the volumes per year and how much time it would take in terms of full-time robots. So this will give you a rough understanding of what would be the cost to run this and what would be the you know the yeah, everything, infrastructure, licenses, and that and so on. So
Andre?
Yeah.
There is one question on bot speed multiplier, how you might determine that.
So this would come a little bit normally later. You don't have to fill it up front. But it could be a rough understanding. Okay, if you feel like this is gonna be clearly be able to be done really quickly, or by the robot, and normally I think it's most click and enter forms. If you have lots of forms, it's always going to be a big multiplier because the robot is going to be able to fill forms much faster. If it's about extraction and like reading through something, it could be, just like a smaller multiplier. But this is going to be something that is, anecdotal. You kind of do a couple of automations and you kind of know which one is the multiplier. And then you can also, calibrate this when you have more details or you start implementing or you do solution design. So this could be, it's not necessarily a one-time exercise. You can do it, you can update this to improve your accuracy. And in able to get these like running costs and everything, you have to do some cost estimates here. So you have for each phase, you have, let's say, some analysis. You got to add some people in terms of cost, and then you're gonna say what is the allocation. They're gonna be allocated 50% for this, let's say, and they're gonna be assigned, I don't know, 5 days. Yeah, so this is going to calculate you how much you're going to be doing in terms of analysis and so on. And you could have solution design development. I just haven't set up the cost catalog for these roles, but if you have, you can add them. And then you have on the running cost, you have the software, so the licenses. And this is kind of like something that I have here. It's I've just done license, like it's a half of a license, it's a small one. It's not gonna take a lot of time, so we're just gonna cut it up. And this is just an idea of how you can do like splits of a license, because most of the time if you have like 0.5 of a license, you will still end up with a full license in this one. So this is a way to just use less than a license. And here I don't have anything in terms of other software costs, but I have in infrastructure, I have the VM, and same, I can say VM is going to be, 50 units. How much time this is going to, run. So we're getting basically some total running cost per month, per year, and so on. And then you're getting like the total cost per year for everything, for the whole project. Human cost, the implementation, and basically everything, and how it's gonna be that calculated. So this is kind of the exercise is being done specifically to make sure that you're also taking into consideration the cost of what it takes to build and run, and not just the opportunity in terms of benefits. Yep. And what I want to now do is, talk a little bit about other like occasions where this might not make sense, or might not be why it's an optional exercise. It's, filling this. Let me share the other. I'll go back to the presentation.
We do have a couple of open questions also.
Yeah, let's do the questions then.
All right. First, what complexity does it add if doing people costs by region? That's from Flora.
So by region, this is the thing. We have per country. We don't have necessarily per region. You can like pick a main country for that. So when you're setting up the cost catalog, I'm just gonna jump right there so you can see under cost setup. When you're doing the one-time implementation cost, this is how you can set it up. So you could either set it up for one country and you consider that country as being, a region, like an average for a region, and that's kind of like you're in one, or you can do for, each country depending on, what type of resource you have. You have some people in Romania, some people in UK, and whatever is that structure of your team. That would be one way to achieve that.
And then the second question is whether there's any type of feature that helps you to look at the actual numbers versus what your predicted numbers were from previous to implementation.
That's a very good question. So there is something, and this is in terms of estimates versus actuals. and it's called Automation ROI Comparison. It's an insights report that helps you, you know, see the actual runs, how much time it's running, and then it uses Automation Hub data in terms of what is the benefit per run. So there's some mapping exercise that has to be done in Automation Hub, and also in terms of, you know, the resulting package. So what packages results from implementing this idea. I don't have necessarily something set up here to show you like this, but I can put some a link to the documentation about how that looks in Insights. But that's kind of its whole scope. Is basically it helps you to, after you go live, to look at the actuals and compare them. How off were you from the estimates in terms of volume versus the actuals? Okay, if there is no other questions, then let's go back to the presentation. Okay, so as I was saying, some noteworthy mentions for cost-benefit analysis is that, yeah, it's optional, and it's an optional exercise because, as you saw, that type of exercise might take a lot of time to just fill in and keep it accurate. And as you know, project plans are made to be changed. So each time somebody has a project plan and says this is going to be take a couple of days for this, at some point that's going to be, you know, that's going to change in some form, either up or down. And you have to, you know, keep it accurate and go back and invest time in filling it back in Automation Hub. So that's one thing to consider. And at the same time, there's, you know, you can also do it as an after the fact. It's not as useful, but it could, you know, be an after the fact, like a lessons learned type of exercise. You go for a specific idea that you've just implemented, and you input the costs of what that was exercise took in terms of implementation cost and then VM and everything. So we can look, okay, it says that if we take out the initial implementation cost, which is a one-time cost, and just take, you know, a couple of years of running this automation, when you're gonna hit return on investment? Is it gonna be in 2 years, in 1 year, and so on? So that's something to think about when considering the cost benefit analysis. And yeah, not all ideas need a cost benefit analysis. As I was saying, and especially when soft benefits, you know, because soft benefits, if they're hard to quantify in terms of hours saved or some form of currency, then the cost benefit analysis will just make everything look bad as a use case. So if your focus is to do automations for type of soft benefit analysis, like employee retention or happiness, you know, things like that, it's the cost benefit analysis will not help you out in, you know, making sure that the use case is, you know, ROI positive. It's more about you're gonna have insights into, is this a huge investment in terms of time versus another idea? So it's going to be a comparison type of exercise and not for the specific idea. And as I was saying, the cost benefit analysis requires some upfront setup of cost catalogs. So you have to fill them in before being able to use it. That's kind of it of what I wanted to share today. And I think if there's other questions, I think we can
Yeah, so
answer
feel
those.
free to take yourself off mute, raise your hand if you have any other questions. Okay, it doesn't look like there are any, Andre. Thank you for the great session today. And I think you and Tracy answered quite a few questions from the chat, so. We do have one question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Rashmi, you can unmute.
Yeah. I just wanted to know that when the costs are determined, do they even check if the uh, license also is being procured and then it has been deducted?
Procured, no. It's just it's like the cost benefit analysis is more like um, a an estimation exercise in terms of cost. So it doesn't mean that a license is allocated or has been procured. You might use list prices, or you could use your own internal, whatever what was the cost of acquiring those licenses if they're already acquired. So this is always going to be something that is anecdotal to your own organization in terms of what is the cost of the license.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hi, this is Laura. I wanted to ask about citizen developer, power user, and self-user.
Mhm.
When you select, when you make a selection, when you're doing an initial submission or whatever, it just shows citizen developer automation. So it's
Mhm.
kind of confusing, self-user, power user, but then when you submit, you just select CD automation.
Mhm.
So I'm trying to understand at what point, okay, is it set with CD development or, well, yeah, set for citizen development.
Mhm. So for like a normal idea, any type of idea is that you decide as a COE if it's a good use case for citizen development. So for example, is it something like, for example, what I said, the Slack one, yeah, the Slack and things. It's debatable. It would be that they could achieve it by themselves as a citizen developer because there's public documentation. They could find everything about it online. They don't have to have access to like sensitive data or sensitive API keys or access. So that's kind of like how you would, you know, think about which one is for COE development and one would be for CDA, for a citizen developer. And the reason why you have that split is that there's like the additional checks for a citizen developer is if they have to be reviewed in terms of business review and technical review later. So that's kind of like the difference, the fundamental difference between COE developed or a citizen developer developed.
But
Does that
that still leaves me with the question of how do I know, okay, whether it's going to be COE or citizen developer until I have a completed detailed assessment.
Oh, yeah.
If the benefit comes out too low for organization development, to me that says self-user.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so let me just publish here so I can see a little bit better. So you have, when you're submitting the idea, what you saw there as a citizen developer, it's an automation. It's not an actual idea. So it's a different flow that we haven't touched right now, but I'm just gonna mention it. It's that one is like the citizen developer assessment is first of all for somebody who has is marked in Automation Hub with role as a role as being a citizen developer, first of all. Because you could say, hey, I want to run this program of citizen development only for these people. And then what it happens is that they could be assigned from the COE after they do the detailed assessment and find all those details, or citizen developers could go and automate whatever they find important for them. And what happens with those automations? They can come back in Automation Hub and submit them as citizen developer development ideas. I mean automations basically. So this is kind of like a governance process. You already have something developed, and you want to make sure that it's safe to be shared with other people. So it's a different perspective. It doesn't have a detailed assessment. It has like a very simple, assessment in terms of assessing, okay, what are the benefits for this already built automation? So that's the nuance there. And then you're making sure that that automation will be useful for other people in terms of business. And then in terms of technical, it doesn't have hard-coded personal passwords in when it was developed and things like that. Does that answer your question?
It does. It does. I'm a little bit ahead in this area, so I'm going to stop there.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I
Welcome.
also have a question. Could I ask?
Sure.
Yeah, this is Praharsha. So what are the key features of UiPath Automation Hub that enhance enterprise level automation scalability? So that's my
Enterprise.
question. Yes.
Enterprise level scalability, meaning automating enterprise level like processes, or is it just
Processes, projects, yes.
yeah? So basically, this is the what Automation Hub really allows you to do is, first of all, do this in parallel with multiple business units. So if you have enough people that can organize, like for example, you have automation champions for legal, automation champions for IT, then you can do this program in parallel. So you can have like you can have separate resources allocated for each category so they can run in parallel. So that means you can do it at scale. At the same time, you can do it at scale in terms of doing the crowdsourcing. So sharing it to all users in the company to share their ideas. So this is what would allow you to do that. And then it's not just capturing the ideas, but also, as I was saying, choosing the right ideas to invest in. Because sometimes you have to choose, are you going to do a legal automation or are you going to do an IT automation? Which one is more valuable? Automation Hub, as it is set up by default, it helps you in terms of benefits, our benefits in terms of hours, you can compare those and say, yeah, this one is more valuable in terms of benefits, hours saved.
Plus,
Sorry.
okay.
Okay. Thanks, Andre, for responding to the ROI question. So there were two follow-up questions I had. Number one is, can we configure more questions in when we are trying to get the COE-led or whatever, like employee-led ideas, those questionnaires which is set up in Automation Hub? Can we like customize those few? That's number one. And second question is, in terms of attended automation, how do we calculate the ROI? I know, in attended automation, we can put the numbers here to do a cost analysis, but, actual ROI, how do we calculate?
Well, even actual ROI would be with a similar process. So if you know the package that was developed, and you do the linking in Automation Hub, then you'd be able to compare, the usage. I know it's really hard in attended to actually know how much, to estimate how much benefit you're gonna get, because if it's like user triggered, if they forget, they don't use it. So I know that's a big challenge, but at least you have this part where if you do the package mapping in terms of what is the implementation of this idea as an attended automation, then you can look at the reports and see, okay, how many times this was run. But at the same time, being an attended, I think it's more important to make sure that whatever that automation is gonna save in terms of hours, it actually happens. Because most of the time I've seen that in attended use cases, there's a lot of wishful thinking in terms of how much time it would save, but realistically, it has to also work. So the quality of the automation has to be there also.
Yeah, I agree. And can we customize those initial process assessment questions?
Yes. So all questions that you've seen in the detailed, in high-level assessment, everything there is customizable. There are some certain questions that you can't remove, like for example, process owner or applications used, things like that you can't remove, but you can customize everything in there in terms of formulas, like for KPIs and other things. And I can share in the chat some links that I mentioned, and I'll put them after we finish the
Sure.
Q&A.
Sure, thank you. That would be helpful.
Great. So I don't see any more questions right now. Anybody else?
I think there was one more from Christian. Christian, did you want to ask your question?
Oh, yeah. So Christian is asking, like, is there an example list of soft ideas versus other types of ideas so we avoid the cost analysis?
So, I mean, soft ideas versus, this is a hard one. Soft ideas for me, soft benefits ideas are like, happiness. It's very hard to quantify happiness, what it takes. So that's anything that improves, quality of life, you as an employee. So, it's not, you could do that thing, it wouldn't be a problem, but automating it just, you have time for other things. So that small thing that you had interrupts you. It's really hard to quantify in terms of other benefits. So yeah, if you get support and everybody, likes it, because that setup of out of office is one of those things is that if you look at the numbers, you're probably never gonna automate it. But realistically, there's lots of people that are excited about automating that one. And if you ask people, everybody's gonna say, yeah, I want that. And that's kind of like an example of an idea. And cost analysis on that one is just gonna be, you don't want to, invest a lot of time cost-wise for this, and make sure that you're not gonna overrun your budget or,
Thank you.
Okay. And I'll just start posting some documentation.
Yeah, and while you're doing that, Andre, thank you very much for the session today. It was great. But I just want to remind everybody again, the project forms are due on December 9th. We would love to have all of you participate in demo day. So the other thing is you need to do a project and with the link to your project, which is all in that form that I just posted on the chat again. And you need to do that in order to be considered for the certification, 50% certification that's coming on, that we'll talk about on Monday as well. So if anybody has any questions about any of that, please let us know as well.
I see there is a question regarding the time zone for the deadline, probably. I think you can consider like end of day EST on the 9th, which means America EST.
Yes.
Hendrik. Okay. Maybe we should move to the Mentimeter now since we're closing.
Yeah.
You will have the occasion to put all these questions about certification next week in the dedicated session, which will be the next one, and you will be talking extensively about certification. And please, let's, if possible, ask the other questions in the forum thread, which you all have. And if you want to put also helpful link for your colleagues in the forum, that's also very nice. I mean, it's not just for asking questions, it's also for you interacting with each other and helping each other. So you can post whatever helps all the others in the forum as well. Just use it as your own room. And Diana is sharing now the link and the code for the Menti, and I will start sharing screen with the QR code so you can scan it and enter the session. And we'll wait just a bit on the QR code so you guys can join as many as possible. Currently, we have 111 people in the session, so let's see how many of you joined the quiz room. So, okay, we need a bit more, maybe in the quiz room, yeah. Let me put the QR code again on the screen so you guys can scan it. It will take you straight into the quiz room, and it's easier to join from mobile, so you can use your mobile phones to get right into the quiz room straight away. So I see there are like many questions around the project template forms and such. If you have any other such related questions, try to post them today on forum so we can maybe gather until tomorrow the whole information and make one answer for everyone so it's very clear. Because we want to get this right for those of you who want to submit the project. You have to create your own demo. Why would we give you a demo to demo? So you have to create your own project and then demo it in front of your trainers. Okay. I think maybe we can move now and start the quiz, since I suppose by now everyone joined. We have 60 players. And yeah, it seems we're here. So let's start with the first question now. And remember, answer fast if you want to get more points. In what assessment is the automation potential and benefit in hours saved calculated? In overview assessment, detailed assessment, or high-level assessment? And you can see we have 10 seconds left. So fast but correctly. And I suppose most of you got it right since you voted before the time was over. Okay, detailed assessment. Not everyone, but most of you. Let's see the leaderboard now. How are we doing after the first question? So we have Mitchell, Casper, and Luis Fernando leading. And remember, this can change anytime until the end. So stay in the quiz and try to be fast on the next questions because usually it changes until the end. And now we're moving to the second question. In which phase are ideas prioritized for implementation? In qualification phase, in assessment phase, or in idea phase?
That was hard. Andre came up with that question.
Yeah, maybe the two concepts are a bit similar, like assessment and qualification, but yes, it was the qualification phase. So let's see the leaderboard. Okay, so we have Casper who moved up. And Vinod, I think Vinod is one of our former winners, and Smita as well in the lead. Let's go to question number 3 now. And let's see. Automation ideas can be submitted from the following: from UiPath Studio or Automation Hub, from Action Center Task Mining, from Automation Hub, Task Mining and Process Mining, from Automation Hub alone. I think this is very easy.
That was better.
Okay, let's see the leaderboard. Okay, so we have Vinod moving into first place, closely followed by Casper and Smita. And the last question and the deciding one for the winners of this session. Remember, we have 3 winners each session, and we'll see. Which among the following personas is normally assigned as the authorized user role? Business analysts, subject matter experts, or RPA developers? Okay, so it's subject matter experts, the correct answer. And now we're going to see the final leaderboard for this session of Menti, or the last session actually of Menti, session 8. We have a turnaround, so definitely a huge turnaround. We have two different winners from previous ones. So we have Casper, Heartstorm, and Vote Goat. Heartstorm, Vote Goat, and Casper, definitely very funny names today. Please direct message Diana in Zoom, so you can give her your email address to get the voucher, the winner's voucher. So direct message to Diana Gray in Zoom, please. Thank you all very much for participating.
Yeah, congratulations to the winners. Those were some hard questions.
Yes, they were.
Casper is Flora.
Yeah, and everybody just make sure you put your email who won in the chat so I can grab that.
Yeah, in direct message to Diana, preferably, not to the full chat. And I think we can close, Diana?
Yes. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Andre and Tracy.
Thank you,
Thank
Andre.
you very much,
Diana,
everyone.
just to confirm, only top 3 are the winners, right?
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a great session.
Thank you.